Hey everyone, this is Kārlis from Amalgam Audio, and today we're going to take a look at the Marshall Silver Jubilee from 1987. So the Silver Jubilee is a very unique amp from Marshall. It was an anniversary model that celebrated Jim Marshall's 50th birthday and also 25 years of Marshall as a brand, and that's why it's called the Marshall Silver Jubilee 2550. It's also in the model number JCM 25/50. This is an amp that was produced only during 1987, so they are a bit on the rare side, the vintage originals. There are not too many of them, so we're happy we got a really nice specimen. This amp came with quite a few innovations at that time that were new for Marshall at least. So it is, for a Marshall amp, it was one of the gainiest or the gainiest amp that they had at the time. And in addition to the tube gain stages that it has, one of those innovations that they included is the diode clipping stage. So that is a feature that you enable when you use the push-pull pot on the input gain, so you can pull it out and pop it back in. When it's pulled out, then you add this diode clipping stage. That is actually, this feature is one of the most defining things about this amp, because it really changes the tone and response of the amp and gives it a character that no other Marshall up to that point had. That's not only gain, but also a somewhat more compression and evenness to the overdriven tone, which works really great for higher gain lead kind of stuff, which is one of the strong suits of this amp. You can get beautiful Marshall-esque lead tones from it without the help of any pedals. It has come to my attention that about 70% of our audience haven't yet subscribed to our channel. So if you enjoy what we're doing here and would like to support us, please give us a sub. That helps a lot. Let's move on to the video. So the amp has two channels. Channel 1 is the typical gain range of a Marshall amp. No big surprises there. It sounds quite classic Marshall-y in the JCM 800 kind of territory. And when you pull out the pot on the master output, you can engage the lead channel, which adds an additional tube stage and ups the gain considerably. So with that, you are in proper lead territory. And this diode clipping stage that you engage with the input gain pot, it will add even more gain on top and give the whole tone a bit more squish and more compression and evenness to the sound. So when you use the lead channel together with the diode clipping stage, you are in serious gain levels already, and you can do a lot of stuff that no other Marshall previously was able. So this is kind of one of those hot-rodded Marshall designs that is one of the most archetypical implementations that we've seen. And those higher gain capabilities of this amp catered to a generation of musicians that were looking for more gain in the late 80s, and there's no surprise that the user list is that of a lot of names, some of the biggest names from various genres within rock. So the main users that come up with the name of this amp is of course Slash, who used it to a great extent with Guns N' Roses. There's of course John Frusciante, who uses it as one part of his quite elaborate amp setup, but the Silver Jubilee has been around for a long time in his setup. Joe Bonamassa, a more blues-oriented player who also is really known for his sustaining lead tones, and again the Silver Jubilee finds a spot in his setup where it's usually used in conjunction with other amps. Then there's a lot of other users who are less associated with this amp, but who had a period in their careers where they used it. So there's Alex Lifeson, Richie Sambora, Adam Jones, Joe Perry, Steve Morse, Dave Navarro, and Neil Gallagher. So again, quite a wide range of users that use it to a great extent, and particularly for the lead stuff in their work, where this amp really excels. Gain capabilities of this amp stop short before being what one could consider high gain. Actually, it could be argued that it has enough gain as such in regard to high gain tones, but it's tonal character is not that of typical high-gain amps. It still sounds like a Marshall, like a hot-rodded Marshall thing, and that gives it, of course, its unique character, and it's a great alternative to some of the more modern amps that came out in a similar time frame. The Mark series of amps, a bit later the dual rectifier and you know, the PV5150 and other stuff. So this was the amp that at that point offered like the high gain option by Marshall. As I find the diode clipping stage one of the most interesting features of this amp, we're gonna check out how it affects the general tone and response. So we're gonna present you 4 short clips of the same riff on the rhythm channel, one with the diode clipping stage engaged, the other one without, and the same again for the lead channel with and without the diode clipping stage. So you know, you can get a grasp of how this diode clipping actually affects the tone and response of the amp. I hope it will come through over a YouTube video, because just by listening the differences might appear not that dramatic. It is also a feel thing that gives it a very different response than the usual Marshall setup. So we're going for a really nice, crunchy, classically Marshall crunch tone on the rhythm channel, and for a nice lead tone with beautiful mids and some nice compression on the lead channel, and let's check out how that sounds. So we dialed in the tones for the rhythm channel and the lead channel. The settings will be blended in here on the screen, and let's find out how they compare and how they sound. One interesting difference for the higher gain Marshall amps or Marshall inspired amps is that, contrary to the modern high gain amps like from Mesa or other companies, it is actually quite okay to keep the master volume on those Marshalls rather high compared to the more modern high gain amps. It still sounds really nice. You can play around with the compression. There's not too much flub or too much overwhelming mids that will kind of pollute your whole frequency range, as it happens, for example, with a dual rectifier. As soon as you go with the master above 3 or something, or maybe 4, let's say 4, yeah, it starts to basically bloat up the mids, and if you're at 5 with the master volume on a dual rectifier, it is totally bloated and overblown in the mid-range. That's not happening with this amp or other Marshall-inspired higher gain amps. The mids are handled differently. There's not as much bass content, so it doesn't flub out so badly. So you get a more fluid, mid-focused tone, which offers itself perfectly for lead playing. And as you could hear in the examples, it's a really fantastic fundament for lead playing. Again, that is, of course, one of the main reasons and selling points why so many of the big acts have used this specifically for their lead stuff. What is really surprising to me with all those features that are implemented in this amp It still has really great clean tones. They have no reason to shy away from other Marshall offerings, so there's like no compromise made here. It's an extremely versatile amp that will cover a lot of ground, and even without any pedals you can get almost anything out of it. So it's an extremely versatile amp, and you can get out almost anything you need from it without the help of any pedals. With this amp you have 3 stages at which you can control the gain, and it's the input gain, the lead master, and the output master. So between those you have a lot of wiggle room where you can make the sound more open, bold and dynamic, or go the other way and create the gain staging so that you get a more compressed sound. So you can go quite well into both extremes with this amp, which only adds to the versatility. It's also, as far as I know, one of the first amps that Marshall had, or maybe the first amp where Marshall had implemented a high and low output setting, which runs the amp on all 4 or only 2 tubes. I personally prefer, as almost always with those amps where they have those switching options, I prefer the full power or high output setting, and that's what we're using here. So that's it for today on the Marshall Silver Jubilee. Like and subscribe if you like what we're doing here. That helps a lot. Fabian is going to play us out on captures we did of this fantastic amp. I hope you tune in to our next episode, and see you around.